Hello, my dear friends and family. I am going to share with you a few thoughts and take you on a journey with us of retracing Paul's first journey by rental car. And my name is Mike. I'm Mike Manna, and I want to start off this little series. We're going to do a few videos for you of a little trip that my wife and I went on through Asia Minor, through modern day Turkey, in September of 2020. And so this is the first episode of some videos that I put together as we recorded as we went through there. And I want to start off by saying that these are very amateur videos, okay? No professionalism here. This is just sharing some of our thoughts. We're using our iPhone and some microphones. In fact, actually, the goal of this is just for family and friends. So honestly, there's going to be some poor video at times, some poor audio, going a little bit of in and out, some tinny video, and audio especially. So, but I wanted to just put that as a precursor to really what you're going to be watching and seeing with us. And I hope it's helpful and I hope it's enjoyable to you as I just really learned so much as we traced Paul's actual first missionary journey by rental car. All right. So join us as we look back at Acts 13 and 14. Now, a little asterisk here. We did not do his entire journey. We did not leave from Antioch of in Syria, or actually it was in Syria. Today it's in Turkey. As in Acts 13, at the beginning of Acts 13 says, we did not go to Cyprus. We did not take a boat over there and do that. I would like to someday, would love to do that. But we actually started when Paul's journey, later on in Acts 13, actually, it's in verse 13, where it says, from Paphos, Paul and his companions sailed to Perga. So we're going to start at Perga and then follow his trip through Asia Minor and then back to Antalya, or today it's Antalya, and then stop there at that point, even not going back all the way. But join us on his first missionary journey through Asia Minor, and we found it so interesting. So if you look on Google Maps today, this is what the route that basically Paul took, starting down at Perga, which was on the coast, or actually it was a river port when it was during Paul's time, and then following it north up to Antioch of Pisidia, then over to modern day Konya, which would have been Iconium back in Paul's day, then down to Lystra and out to Derbe, and then back again. But we're going to take you on that trip with us. It's actually a 600 miles of driving with our rental car, although we did take a little bit of shortcut on the way back. We did not follow it all the way, returned back to every spot that he did. But he took it, of course, in several weeks, and he really made a huge difference of starting disciples and churches in Asia Minor, or Galatia, actually, also. So here is modern day Turkey. We're going to start where Paul started in Asia Minor. We're going to start in Perga. Okay? So I hope that this little video will be helpful to you as you look at Acts 13 and 14 in the future when you read it again. But I want to big thanks to my wife, Judy, who is behind the camera for most of the whole time, actually the whole time. And without her, this wouldn't have happened. And so a big thanks to Judy as we go forward in learning together as we start with the city of Perga. I am talking to you from the ruins in Perga. And this is near Antalya, Turkey. And I am so excited. This is my first time here with Judy. And this is just amazing because we're actually going to be walking through this tower up here. And we know
that from Acts 13 and 14, that Paul and Barnabas, and even on the first time through John Mark, they went through the particular walls. These are called the Hellenistic Towers. They were there built in 3 BC, according to the archaeologists that have been working on this site for the last 65 years. And we're going to go into the city here in just a moment, and we're going to see central market squares, the agora, and some amazing ruins that they've discovered here. But what's so cool, of course, to me, is the fact that it says in Acts 13:13, now Paul and his companions set sail from Paphos and came to Perga in Pamphylia. Pamphylia is the region that we're in. And then it does say, John left them and returned to Jerusalem. It's very interesting. We don't have any idea why John Mark left. He apparently had a good time in Cyprus doing ministry with them, but had decided for some particular reason to go back to Jerusalem and not continue on through Asia Minor with Barnabas and Paul. This is an amazing city. Now, it does say in the Bible that it mentions Perga one more time. It's actually just one chapter later, and it says in Acts 14, I can find this here, that when they were coming through, after they'd already gone through Pisidian Antioch, Iconium, Lystra, Derbe, and made their way on the way back, and as they came back and had this amazing ministry journey, lots of suffering, lots of problems up there, but disciples being made and discovered as well, they come back to Perga, and there it says again, they passed through Pisidia, came to Pamphylia, and when they had spoken the word in Perga, they went down to Antalya, and from there they sailed back to Antioch. Of course, that's the Syrian Antioch that sent them originally. So here they come back again. It says they preached the word, or they spoke the word in Perga. So disciples were definitely planted here. Church started here, and apparently it grew. Okay, we have just come through the gate, and one thing that we noticed, of course, is all the niches that are within the gate. There's several of them, 7 I think on each side. Originally there were 6. They would have been there during Paul and Barnabas and John Mark's first visits and second visit here. They had statues to the emperors and to the gods in that location. Here's a couple that may have been there. Actually, this is Emperor Hadrian, so he was later than Paul, but we could have had any of these particular statues that were there. These are all found in Perga. Every single thing here is found in Perga. And so statues that were similar to these here, here is Hadrian's wife, the current Caesars would have been in there, and they worshiped them. It was just part of the cult. Here is the main street here that we're coming into from the main gate, and down the center of this particular street here is actually a man-made stream, creek, river, whatever you want to call it, and it came down and flowed down the street here. And this was a street where some of the main stores were on both sides under the columns, and all the different exchange of goods would happen right here. Here we're in the agora of Perga, and this area would have been the commercial center, social center, cultural center really of the city. And you can see it's in the square with the circular structure in the middle, possibly a fountain there, we don't know exactly, but there would have definitely been also different gods, and there was an Attis statue that was found here actually too. But in this particular area, there would have been the trade of goods that were going back and forth between people. Shops would have been here. You can see actually the shops here on the center. This, of course, had roofs and everything over the shops as well along the street side. And this is where business happened. Good chance that Paul and Barnabas did business here. Right now we are on one of the western streets that intersect the main street in Perga. And on this particular street, there is a building here that the archaeologists have found and have been reconstructing. And it's basically a gymnasium. This was built during the 1st century because there is a dedication to Nero, Emperor Nero here, that was found with this building and the digs. So that was its 1st century. That means there is a possibility that Paul may have been here during this time. The cool thing about this stadium is that it was actually started to be built in the 1st century. So there's a chance that Paul and Barnabas actually came in to this stadium and maybe even watched an event here. Look at this large stadium. You can picture the possibility of the gladiator fights and the races that were going on in here, and the crowds cheering for their favorite team or favorite opponent, and there was 12,000 people that could sit in the stands all around here. And so this particular stadium would have possibly been here when Paul and Barnabas visited Perga. And of course, you can't help but think about the scripture verses that talk about running the race to the end, fighting the good fight, and also even the idea of being disciplined in our own spiritual walk, as well as the athletes are in their physical walk as well. So, what a special place to come to into Perga and to walk into the old stadium that was here in this city. Perga, but actually this is a very significant place. Here we have actually what is called the Hadrianus or Acropolis Nymphaeum. And what we have here is actually, this is what it would have looked like. Probably around 120 AD it was constructed. On it would have been some gods, specifically the river god would have been placed here, and also some statues to Zeus, to Apollo, and also they said that there were 2 statues to Hadrian during this time as well. On both sides, this was a huge fountain in the middle, and you can see that the water would have come down here and gone down through the main street. If you just pan that and said through the main street, and the water, this is where the water started for the main street. But there was another big reason for this place. This place was also where you started your ascent to worship the gods. And so, again, this would be worshiping Caesar and all the other Roman gods as well, or Greek gods before that. This would have been during Roman time, though. So there was 2 staircases that went up both sides up to the top of this hill. This is the Acropolis, overlooking the city of Perga, very similar to, you think about the Acropolis in Athens. And on top of that would have been the temples to worshiping other gods. So people would take their ascent as coming up here. It actually reminds me a little bit of what we as Christians, or even the early Hebrews, did as well. And we think of the Psalms of Ascent. And I think of them, and that during those times that when people were going to Jerusalem to worship God, they would sing these psalms as they were going to. Here we see false worship. Here we see the things that the religion, the belief systems that Paul and Barnabas were actually confronting as they came here to Perga, into this area of the world, bringing the gospel to the Gentiles, the non-Jews, for the first time.
As you've seen, the archaeologists have discovered so much at the site of Perga over the last 65 years. And they were wise in not just leaving everything there out in the open, but many of the statues that they found are preserved at the Antalya Archaeological Museum. Judy and I also visited that so that we'd understand a little bit more of the Roman culture. And so I'd like to share with you just a short little video excerpt of our visit to this museum as well, to understand Roman life that Paul and Barnabas might have seen when they came there as well into the city. Watch this.
I am in Antalya Museum, and I am here to see the amazing sculptures of what was in Perga, the city of Perga, which actually Paul went into. But these sculptures were a little bit after him, but there had been similar things during his time. And it shows the amazing power of the Roman Empire. And so if you just look at this, you can see all this. These are different statues that were during in the theater. Here was Alexander the Great, and all of these are found in the city of Perga. Now we're back at the front of the city of Perga, near the actual entrance gates, and I'm standing in front of an actual church, a church that was built in the 6th century. What could we say because of this church here and knowing about how Christianity grew in Perga? Well, we know that Paul and Barnabas came here. We know that it was through their teaching of the word that basically of helping these, there probably was a synagogue here. We can't find it. They haven't found ruins of that yet, but he probably spoke to the Jews that were living in Perga and to, of course, non-Jews, the Gentiles that were coming to Christ in Asia Minor. And from that first early group of people, a church develops in Perga. We don't know a lot about it, but we do know this. We do know that in 325 AD, not much longer, 250 years after Paul and Barnabas were here, there was a significant church here enough that the pastor or the bishop of this city was a representative at the Council of Nicaea. This is the councils that were bringing all of the bishops and pastors together from all of the churches to understand and develop who was Jesus as God, and is 100% God, 100% man. What made up the New Testament, putting the canon together that we have today. And here in Perga, there was a representative that was the pastor or the bishop of this city and this group of Christians. And personally, I've been thinking a lot about that too. And how does that relate to me and my ministry? You know, Paul came back here again. He came back here after visiting it once. He went back in this area of Asia Minor, in Antioch, Pisidia, in Lystra, in Iconium, Derbe. He returned to his disciples. Even Timothy comes out of Lystra, not very far away from here. And so because Paul continued to return to those that he led to Christ and helped grow in the faith, I think that's a good thing for us to remember too. I think wherever we are in life, whether it's as parents, grandparents, as those that are young in our age or older in our age, that those that we nurture, those that we have relationships, those that we even lead to Christ or help grow in Christ, that we don't forget them. That we put energy into those relationships, and that just like Paul returning to Perga and to these other cities in this area, that seeing the fruit of that, seeing the fruit of the continual relationship, the continual discipleship, let's keep remembering to return to those that God has led us to.